The NBA is in free agency. Free agency has officially begun as of this morning. Not a lot has happened. Of course, a lot of the draft happened last week.
Except LeBron.
And LeBron is the big one. We'll get to him in a second.
Okay. Just a quick note in the NBA. Ace Baldwin has signed a summer league contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. Zach Hicks with the Boston Celtics.
Yes.
They'll be on the summer league teams for those two teams.
Which will be awesome. And we'll get to those teams in a second as well because there's some things there. But for the NBA, draft was last week. These players sign everywhere. Along with that is the slow leaking out of news here and there. Of course, Kevin Durant's Houston Rocket. That's kind of the start of it all. Some trades have happened here or there in the past few days. No big ones. You had, for whatever reason, the Phoenix Suns again going and getting Mark Williams. So they've now traded 2 firsts and 3 seconds for the Charlotte Hornets center rotation. And then other trades happening here and there. Nothing crazy big. The biggest news, we'll get to LeBron in a second. We're waiting on what's going to happen with other players, like a Jonathan Kuminga with the Warriors, who we don't know. There's a bunch of stuff like that out there. The Portland Trailblazers and DeAndre Ayton are finalizing a buyout, so the former number 1 overall pick is now a free agent. Jabari Smith Jr. signed a 5-year, $122 million deal. Okay. James Harden's got 2 years, $81 million.
Good.
There isn't a lot of crazy stuff, which I guess is a good thing. Like Julius Randle got 3 years, $100 million.
You stay with Minnesota.
Nas Reed got 5 years, $125. Like it's a bunch of those types of moves. The Thunder traded Dylan Jones away, so now they officially have. Oh my God. It's more that they now have space to actually play Thomas Sorbet, their new draft pick.
Sure.
But the big news is LeBron. And LeBron opts into his $51.5 million player option for this season, which means he's with the Lakers for next season. The thing is, as soon as
he opted in for a year.
He has never opted in. He's had 8 contracts. He's opted out of every one of them to sign a new extension. He has never been on just a 1-year deal.
Right.
And in this case, he opts in. And at the same time as opting in, Rich Paul, his agent, put out a whole statement, which included some words that gave people the idea that LeBron might not want to be there in the long term. And at the same time as it's happening, I say, so you don't want to be with the Lakers long term, but you opt in to your contract. Right. If you didn't want to be there, why are you opting in? Because if you're going to get traded, they've got to send things for you, $51.5 million worth for you, which means the team you're going to go to is weaker, so you're going to have a worse time of winning. You see my conundrum here.
Well, I think there are 51 million reasons why he opted in.
It's fair. He's a billionaire, too, at the same time. Money's money.
And you have to remember,
yeah,
with movies and everything, Los Angeles, Hollywood, whatever has become his world. Okay? I mean, he's producing, things like that away from the floor. So that's essentially where his business empire is now. We are now at a point in this country, as we pointed out, that I don't know why we're so New York, LA centric on sports news. The same thing with this. If LeBron wanted to set up in retirement something in Akron, he could. If he wanted to set up something to be part of the ownership group with the new Las Vegas team, once that's announced, right? And say he's a part of it, he can set up shop there. He can do whatever he wants. Right, at that point. At this point, he stays in Los Angeles, kind of sees how it goes.
And he is now officially on that 1-year deal, which means the end of this contract. He is a free agent. It could also mean this is his final year. There's a lot of...
Well, he's not young.
He's not young, but that's the point, is that he has not been on a 1-year deal basically since he left Cleveland the first time.
Essentially, he's been on 1-year deals the entire time.
But he hasn't had just 1 year left.
He's always opted out of the first year.
And then signed a 2-year to get a 1 year plus. Right. He hasn't been on just a pure, this is the last year of his contract.
He has perfectly, and I mean this as a compliment, game the system.
Yes.
Okay?
2 years,
and I mean that as a compliment. That is it. Normally, you hear somebody game the system, means you're insulting them. This is 180 of that. The system says you can do this. He's done it,
and he's made a lot of money doing it. It's worked for him.
He's been smart about it. He's been really smart about it.
Speaking of money and possibly not being smart, The news broke yesterday. Federal authorities are investigating Detroit Pistons guard Malik Beasley on allegations of gambling related to NBA games and prop bets. This broke out yesterday. He was set to sign a 3-year, $42 million deal to retain his job with the Pistons. And now every team has been made aware of it, and now it is up in the air. His gambling industry sources, apparently for people, are pointing to the Bucks' time when he was with them in 2024 as to when this is being looked at. So they're cooperating with federal authorities. The NBA, of course, not the first time the NBA's had this happen. Toronto Raptors forward Jonte Porter was banned from the NBA after an investigation found that he disclosed information you cannot do to sports bettors earlier this year.
Other guys,
Miami guard Terry Rozier is under federal investigation. He has not been charged, nor has he faced any sanctions.
Other guys in other leagues are going to face some of this stuff too. Yes. This is going to happen. It's big news now. It's amazing how it never happens in Great Britain with the Premier League. And they've had Sportsbook there, Ladbrokes, for years, decades. They've had it. And let's just say 10 years. Any betting scandals? No.
There's been one or two, but it's been a long time. I can't remember the last time it actually happened in the Premier League.
Long time ago. And that is...
And the thing is, in basketball, because of the way it's played, there to an extent you can control it. You can't really control it with football unless you're a quarterback.
Right. This is, it turns out, ironically, I went down to Virginia, helped my son move into his new home on Saturday. I got back maybe about 11:15 Saturday night. Just wanted to sit down for a second, turn on the TV, and there was a 30 for 30 on. It was the 30 for 30. I've seen it before on the Boston College point shaving scandal, which happened in 1980.
Yeah.
Right. There's Rick Kuhn from Pittsburgh, and then others were accused: Ernie Cobb, Jim Sweeney. And the irony is, then I'll get to the other part in a moment. The irony is that, do you know how they got Al Capone and got him into prison?
Tax evasion, I believe.
It was tax evasion. It wasn't for attempted murder. That they could never pin it on him. Okay? Never could pin it on him. Have you ever seen the movie Goodfellas?
I have not. It's I know, bad of me.
No, it has nothing to do with that. I'm asking only for a reference point here. Robert De Niro in the movie plays the gangster Jimmy Conway. Now, they used a different name. In real life, it's Jimmy Burke. And Henry Hill was played by Ray Liotta. Well, Henry Hill is really Henry Hill. Okay, and I think he, at one point, spent time over at Lewisburg. But that aside, at the end of the movie, Hill's on Liotta is on the stand, Henry Hill, and they've got him dead to rights. I mean, with the drug running in Pittsburgh and things like that, and shows him pointing to the defendant, Jimmy Conway in the movie. Okay. Well, in real life, people think in the movie it had to do with the drug running. It was Jimmy Burke got 20 years for the Boston College scandal. And it was, and even the people in the FBI were like, we linked them, and like the people involved in it, the Perler brothers from Pittsburgh, even said we don't even remember him being on a phone call. But it was their way to get Jimmy Burke, and Jimmy Burke got 20 years. Okay? So you talk about the ease with which you can do it. I've told this story before, but I'll retell it. And that is about Penn State being involved in a point shaving game. Okay? As the participant, not as the object of the FBI. Notre Dame had a place kicker, Kevin Pendergast. Kicked the game-winning field goal in the Cotton Bowl against Texas A&M. All right. Oh, he's great. Yeah. He's from out of Simsbury, Connecticut. I think he's done in his career, whatever it is. Right? And this was uncovered by the Chicago Tribune. And there were 3 games where they figured out there was point shaving going on. So the 3 participants that were alleged were Deion Lee, point guard, Dewey Williams, big man, center, right, forward center, and Burke. Was it Burke? No, Purdy. It was Kevin Purdy. All right. So you talk about the ability to fix a game. The point guard obviously is one. Okay? The big man is certainly another one. And then Purdy didn't play except there's 2 minutes to go in the game. You're getting blown out by 25 points. He comes in the game. What's he good at? Threes. He knocks down a couple threes. 25 becomes 19. And, oh, wait a minute. We have a problem. The way the story goes, and Lee was a perfect guy to do this. He could give you 17 one night. He could give you 4 the next. He was always one of those guys.
Hot or cold.
Right? You just didn't know. So it was like, are you surprised he scored 17? No. Are you surprised he scored 4? No. Okay? Dewey Williams wasn't a good defender to begin with. He just wasn't. Right? I remember I wasn't doing the games with Dick at the time. I think it was Frank Gardenia. I looked over and I said, Frank, Dewey Williams, this is before the game. He says, I think Amachi's going to have a big game. Dewey Williams is a dog. That's what I said to him. I meant as a defender. He's just a dog defender. So the game is, okay, so the first game of the group was Wisconsin. And I think Wisconsin was in the neighborhood of a 13.5-point favorite. Wisconsin won by 14, so barely. So the second game of the group was Penn State. Needless to say, they won it a little more convincing margin. They didn't need to sweat it out because if you go back to the movie, or not back to the BC point shaving scandal, there was the Holy Cross game, and Holy Cross was favored by 3 and only won by 2 because Ernie Cobb hit some shots down the stretch. They fouled it up they lost a lot of money in the Holy Cross BC game. So now they play Penn State after the narrow, okay, hey, we're on the plus side against Wisconsin. Penn State, Kyle, blows them out by 30 points. 30 points. And Penn State was a 17, 18-point favorite. Okay, Penn State went to the NIT Final Four that year. They had a good team, right? They blow them out by 30 points. And I think John Amachi had his career high at 30 in that game. Dewey Williams couldn't guard him. And guess what? Deion Lee had 4. So now after seeing that performance, and I think the numbers were $4,000 each time, Lee would then keep whatever, pick a number, a couple thousand, 1,200 for Williams, 800 for Purdy, whatever, something like that, or whatever the distribution was. I think it was, I'm close on the numbers in terms of what's alleged to be the distribution. Now they get Michigan. Michigan is a 23-point favorite. And Lee tells Pendergast, and Pendergast, by the way, was behind. I remember he was sitting behind the bench in the Penn State game because it was pointed out to me. He said, "Hey, check it out, it's the Notre Dame kicker, Kevin Pendergast." I go, "What the hell is he doing here?" Right? Didn't make sense because I knew he was from Connecticut, so it's not like he was from the neighborhood and came over and said, "Let's go see a game." But I was like, "Oh, that's nice."
Sure.
I just kind of like. Weird that he's here, but that's okay, right? So now they get to this, and Lee tells Pendergast allegedly, "Hey, look, I don't think we can do that. That's too hard to control." So Pendergast comes back into Evanston and meets in the alleyway. Have you been to Evanston? There's a movie theater near there, so there's an alleyway next to the movie theater, and Pendergast meets Lee in the alley and says, "Look, we'll double the money to 8. This is the big score." And Lee goes, "All right, okay." Well, Michigan wins the game by 17.
Under.
Because remember, this was going to be, the big score. So they put decent money on the Wisconsin game. They put about the same money on the Penn State game, it's alleged, but then they went for the big one. This is going to be the one that, and it's the one that sent up all the red flags to the FBI. They didn't cover. They lost their shirts. Pendergast now has gone around the country for years now preaching about gambling and problems and so forth. You know, I know it was part of his sentence, but I mean, but he still does it even after he's done. Lee's always denied it, but they got in trouble for all this. Look, I did the game that night. Did I think twice about what was going on the floor? No. Right? I didn't find out about it till 2 years later when I read it in the Chicago Tribune. I go, really? Right? I knew Northwestern was not good. They were awful that night. But Northwestern playing awful in the 90s was not an unusual occurrence. And that was not a bad Penn State team. It was a good Penn State team. And you just kind of sat there and went, really? So I want to say this was the 94-95 season. And that, so you talk about the ability to, in basketball, as opposed to soccer, for example.
Yeah.
You've got 11 guys out there, and how many you have to pay off to make it happen? Let's start with the goalie.
Soccer to pay off the goalie, but also to make sure that the strikers score, and also the goalies don't play terribly, because if they play terribly, the coach is just going to pull them. If you're that bad, you're going to get pulled.
Right.
So like, there's only so much you can control, and then the same thing in football, where it's like, even if you're a quarterback, if you start playing bad enough, like at some point you're yanked. Like there's a fine line in those sports versus basketball. Especially if you're like what Jonte Porter was, where he's in the game, he's in at the end of the game, and he's in the end of the game because it's not a close enough game. He can either bring it back to close by hitting enough threes, or keep it far away by missing more shots. And that's okay because he's on the end of the roster, so you don't think much about it. Right. Like Beasley is a weird case as well, so that's just a lot. There's a lot going on there.
Here's the story here. I mean, again, the ability to get 5 guys to do this is, I mean, you can do that. You know, they pick 3 guys.
Would you like to know, by the way, what the bet is that set off the red flags for Malik Beasley? Real quick. Would you like to guess what it is? Firstly, what stat, Steve?
Turnovers.
A gambling industry source pointed to a game between the Bucks and the Trailblazers, January 31st, 2024. The odds on Beasley recording fewer than 2.5 rebounds moved significantly at the sportsbooks for the game, shortening from around plus 120 to around minus 250 due to a surge of action on the under. Beasley finished with 6 rebounds. The bets that were deemed unusual lost.